The fragrance of pine and wild roses filled the night air, mingling with the acrid smoke from a huge bonfire that cast long, flickering shadows across the forest clearing. A primal rhythm pulsed through the ground beneath my bare feet, a beat that seemed to echo the very heart of the pack as they celebrated the summer solstice. Laughter and howls punctuated the air, the collective joy a tangible force that seemed to press in on me, highlighting the invisible barrier that had always set me apart. I stood on the fringe of the celebration, my pale blonde hair falling in waves down my back, catching the golden light of the flames. My fingers tightened around the worn silver amulet my grandmother had given me before she passed, a small wolf with sapphire eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. "Remember who you are," she had whispered, "even when others do not." Tonight, like every night since I had come to the Silver Moon Pack, I felt forgotten. "Smile, Julian," Marcus said, nudging me with his elbow. As one of the few pack members who made an effort to speak to me, he seemed to have taken on the responsibility of my social integration. "It is a feast. You are supposed to look happy." I forced my lips into a smile, but it felt brittle and false. "I am happy," I lied, my gaze drifting to the pack members dancing and celebrating around their alpha king, Kalen, and his Luna, Sabina. They were a striking pair, he exuding a dark power and commanding presence, she a vision of graceful beauty, her fiery red hair a swirl of color as he spun her across the clearing. "You know, you could join in," Marcus suggested, though we both knew it was not true. As a human living among werewolves, I was tolerated only because I had nowhere else to go after my grandmother's death. The pack had taken me in out of respect for her healing skills, which I had inherited in some small measure, but tolerance was a far cry from acceptance. "I am fine here," I said, my eyes drawn to the pack house where 3 small children slept. Kalen and Sabina's triplets, 2 boys and a girl, barely 3 years old, had been put to bed hours ago. I could just make out the warm glow from their window, where a nightlight held the shadows at bay. A sudden shift in the atmosphere pulled my attention back to the celebration. Kalen had stopped dancing, his head tilted, as if listening to something only he could hear. His eyes, reflecting the firelight, narrowed dangerously as he scanned the trees that bordered the clearing. Without warning, he barked a command, and several of his warriors melted into the darkness. "The border patrol has found something," Marcus whispered, his body tensing beside me. "It must be serious for them to interrupt the feast." A cold shiver traced a path down my spine as Sabina continued to dance, seemingly oblivious to her mate's sudden alertness. Or perhaps, I thought, she was deliberately creating a diversion. Either way, my eyes kept returning to the pack house, to that small, warmly lit window. Then I saw it, a shadow, moving with a speed that was not natural, slipping toward the children's wing of the pack house. No one else seemed to have noticed. The pack warriors had followed their alpha toward the eastern border. Sabina was now dancing more frantically, her laughter high and forced, as she drew more pack members into her circle. A distraction, I realized with a sudden, chilling clarity. But from what? Without a second thought, I backed away from the firelight, dropping my half-eaten plate of food behind a log. No one paid me any mind as I slipped into the darkness, my heart hammering against my ribs. The silver amulet burned against my skin as I ran, my grandmother's words echoing in my mind. "True strength is not in claws or fangs, Julian. It is in doing what is right when everyone else is looking away." The pack house loomed before me, its stone walls a silvery gray in the moonlight. I moved silently along its perimeter, my human senses straining to detect any sign of a disturbance. Another shadow flickered at the edge of my vision, taller than a man, moving with an inhuman quickness toward the children's bedroom window. I flattened myself against the wall, terror freezing the breath in my lungs. What could I do against a werewolf, or worse, whatever creature moved with such unnatural speed? I had no claws, no supernatural strength, only my wits and a desperate urge to protect 3 innocent children who had always smiled at me when the rest of the pack looked right through me. The night seemed to hold its breath as I crept toward the children's wing, staying close to the shadows. The window was open, just a crack, but it was enough for me to see fingers like twisted branches prying it wider. Not werewolf claws, but something else, something ancient and wrong that smelled of grave dirt and decay. My amulet grew hotter, and a strange certainty flooded my senses. Whatever was trying to get in was not from any pack I knew. It was not a creature of this world. I reached into my pocket and closed my fingers around the small pouch of herbs I always carried, protection herbs my grandmother had taught me about, wolfsbane, rowan berries, and salt, bound with a silver thread. Against those who hunt in the dark, she had said, never elaborating. Now with trembling fingers I withdrew the pouch and a small silver blade, no longer than my index finger. I sliced my palm, letting 3 drops of my blood fall onto the herbs as I whispered the words my grandmother had made me memorize. Blood of my blood, light in the darkness, a shield against shadow. The pouch grew warm and a soft blue light emanated from between my fingers. Without hesitation I threw it through the narrow opening of the window. A high, thin scream, like the wind whistling through dead branches, tore through the night. The shadow creature recoiled from the window, its form twisting in agony as the blue light spread like water, forming a protective barrier around the children's room. I pressed myself flat against the wall as the thing dropped to the ground, its body contorting unnaturally. Up close I could see it was vaguely humanoid, but wrong in every way, limbs too long, skin like bark, and eyes like empty voids in a withered face. It turned those hollow eyes toward me, and I felt a chill seep into my soul. Human, it hissed, the word formed by a mouth that seemed to crack open in its face. Little light-bearer, you should not meddle in matters beyond your comprehension. My body trembled, but I forced myself to stand straight, the silver amulet burning against my skin, giving me courage. I comprehend enough, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You will not touch those children. The creature laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The Alpha King's precious pups. Do you think he will thank you, human? Do you think he even sees you? The truth in those words stung, but I pushed the pain aside. I am not doing it for his thanks. Then why? It asked, tilting its head at an impossible angle. Because they are innocent, I answered, and because I can. The creature moved toward me, its body flowing like smoke. Then you will die in their place. A fair exchange. I backed away, knowing I could not outrun it, could not fight it. The protection spell would hold for the children, but I had nothing left to shield myself. I gripped my grandmother's amulet, praying for a miracle. The night air suddenly grew heavy, charged with a power that made my hair stand on end. A low, rumbling growl vibrated through the darkness, a primordial and terrifying sound of rage. The Alpha King stepped from the shadows, but not as the man I had glimpsed from afar. This was his wolf, massive, black as midnight, with eyes like burning gold. Behind him, more wolves emerged, their teeth bared in silent snarls. The creature froze, then began to retreat, its form becoming less substantial. "You dare," Kalen growled, his voice somehow understandable even in his wolf form, layered with a power that made my knees weak. "You dare to enter my territory and threaten my children." "The bargain was made," the creature hissed. "A life for a life. If not the pups, then another must pay the price." Kalen's massive wolf stalked forward. There was no bargain, only a lie told by one who will pay with her own blood. My mind reeled. Someone had made a deal. Someone had offered the Alpha's children as payment. The realization struck me like a physical blow. Sabina. The Luna. The distraction at the feast suddenly made a terrible, horrifying sense. The creature seemed to shrink before Kalen's advance, but its hollow eyes fixed on me one last time. "Ask your Luna what price she was willing to pay for immortal beauty," it said. "Ask what blood she promised." With a sound like tearing silk, it dissolved into the shadows, leaving only the scent of decay behind. I stood frozen, blood still dripping from my palm, as Kalen shifted back to his human form. Naked and magnificent in the moonlight, he radiated such power and fury that I could not look directly at him. One of his warriors hurried forward with a robe, which he donned without taking his eyes off me. "What did you do?" he demanded, closing the distance between us in 3 long strides. My voice failed me as he loomed over me, his golden eyes seeming to see into my very soul. "A protection spell for the children." "Show me." With shaking hands, I led him to the window. The blue light still shimmered around the room, and through the glass we could see the 3 children sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger that had stalked them. Kalen pressed his palm against the barrier, and I felt a jolt of energy pass between my body and his, as though the spell recognized him. The blue light pulsed once, then allowed his hand to pass through. "Blood magic," he said, turning those golden eyes back to me. "Old magic, human magic." I nodded, unable to form words under his scrutiny. "You risked your life, for my children." It was not a question, but I answered anyway. "Anyone would have." "No." His voice was like gravel, deep and rough with an emotion I could not identify. "Anyone would not have, my own Luna." He broke off, a flash of pain crossing his face before the mask of alpha authority returned. He reached out suddenly, gripping my injured hand and turning it palm up to examine the cut I had made. The touch of his skin against mine sent a shock of electricity up my arm, making me gasp. Kalen froze, his eyes widening as they locked with mine. Something passed between us, something ancient and undeniable that made the world around us fade to insignificance. My heart thundered in my chest as his thumb brushed across my palm, smearing my blood against his skin. "Impossible," he whispered. But there was a note of wonder in his voice, not denial. Before I could ask what he meant, shouts erupted from the direction of the feast. Warriors were returning, dragging someone between them. Even from a distance I recognized the flash of red hair. Sabina. Kalen's expression hardened, his jaw clenching as he released my hand. "Bring her to the council hall," he ordered the warriors. To me, he said, "Stay with my children. Keep your protection spell active." "What is happening?" I dared to ask. His eyes met mine again, and in them I saw a conflict of confusion and something else, something that made my breath catch. "Justice," he said simply. Then, lower, meant only for me. "We will speak again, little one." There is much to discuss. As he turned to follow his warriors, I caught his final words, so quiet I almost missed them. "My true mate." I stood there, shocked into stillness, as the implications of those 3 words crashed over me like a tidal wave. True mate. The most sacred bond among werewolves. Impossible between an alpha and a human. Impossible. Until tonight. The silver amulet cooled against my skin as I made my way to the children's room, my mind reeling with questions I was afraid to answer. Whatever came next, I knew with a bone-deep certainty that my life would never be the same. I spent the night in a rocking chair beside the children's beds, my protection spell shimmering faintly around us like a cocoon of starlight. The triplets slept peacefully, unaware of how close they had come to the fate Sabina had bargained for them. Occasionally one would stir, their small hands clutching at dreams, and I would hum the lullaby my grandmother had taught me until they settled again. Dawn broke with a hushed reverence, painting the room in gentle shades of gold and rose. I had not slept, my mind too full of questions and fears, and those 3 words Kalen had whispered. My true mate. Words that could not possibly have been meant for me, a human with no place in the hierarchy of wolf society. Yet the memory of his touch lingered on my skin, the electric connection between us undeniable. A soft knock at the door startled me from my thoughts. I tensed, unsure of what awaited on the other side, but it was only Marcus, his usually cheerful face drawn with exhaustion. "You're alive," he said, relief evident in his voice as he slipped inside. "When no one could find you after everything, I feared the worst." "I've been here," I said, gesturing to the still sleeping children. Keeping watch. Marcus's eyes widened as he noticed the faint blue glow surrounding the room. "Is that a protection spell?" "I explained," I said, suddenly self-conscious. Magic, especially human magic, was viewed with suspicion by most werewolves. "It will fade once I leave." Instead of the disgust I expected, Marcus looked impressed. "So the rumors are true. You saved them." "What rumors?" He settled on the floor beside my chair, his voice dropping to a whisper, though we both knew that werewolf children had supernatural hearing even in their sleep. "The whole pack is talking about it. How you spotted the shadow creature when no one else did. How you faced it alone to protect the Alpha's pups." A warmth crept into my cheeks. I just happened to be looking in the right direction. While everyone else was distracted by the Luna's dance, Marcus's expression darkened. Former Luna, I should say. A chill ran through me. "What happened after I left?" Marcus glanced at the sleeping children, then back at me. Sabina was caught trying to flee. When the Alpha confronted her with what you had seen, she confessed. She had made a deal with a Shadow Walker, one of the ancient Fae that live in the deep forests beyond our borders. What kind of deal? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Youth, beauty, power. Marcus spat the words as if they were poison. Shadow Walkers can grant such things, but their price is always blood. Usually their client's own, paid in installments over years. But Sabina... He trailed off, looking at the sleeping triplets. She offered her children instead, I finished, a wave of sickness churning in my stomach. Marcus nodded grimly. Not just any blood, alpha blood, royal blood. The Shadow Walker would have drained them slowly, taking years of their lives to fuel Sabina's vanity. I clutched my amulet, remembering the hollow-eyed creature at the window. What will happen to her? She has been banished, Marcus said, stripped of her Luna status and her pack bonds. The Alpha, I have never seen him like that. His rage was terrifying, but even more frightening was his control. He did not kill her, though every instinct must have demanded it. The triplets began to stir, their tiny eyes blinking open in the morning light. The little girl, Elara, saw me first, her face lighting up with a smile that squeezed my heart. "Jules," she exclaimed, using the shortened version of my name that her small mouth found easier to pronounce. Her brothers, Finn and Leo, woke at her voice, both scrambling to sit up. "You stayed all night?" Leo asked, his golden eyes, so like his father's, wide with wonder. I nodded, a warmth spreading through my chest at their obvious delight in finding me there. Unlike the adults of the pack, the children had never treated me as an outsider. To them I was simply Jules, who told the best stories and always had pockets full of honey candies. "Where's Mother?" Finn asked, looking around the room with a small frown. The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. How did one explain to 3-year-olds that their mother had tried to sacrifice them for her own gain? I was saved from answering by another knock, this one firmer, more commanding. The door opened before either Marcus or I could respond, revealing Kalen himself. He filled the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a simple black t-shirt and jeans that did nothing to diminish his regal bearing. The triplets squealed in delight, launching themselves at their father with a supernatural speed. He caught them easily, a genuine smile softening his severe features as he gathered them close. "My brave warriors," he rumbled, his deep voice gentle as he kissed each tousled head. "And my fierce princess." Marcus rose quickly, bowing his head in respect. "Alpha." Kalen nodded to him, then fixed his golden gaze on me. The intensity in his eyes made my heart stumble. "Marcus, take the children for breakfast. I need to speak with Jules." "Of course, Alpha," he said, beckoning to the triplets. "Come on, little ones. I heard Cook made cinnamon pancakes this morning." The children hesitated, looking between their father and me with curious expressions. "Go on," Kalen encouraged them. "I just need to thank Jules properly for watching over you last night." That seemed to satisfy them, and they followed Marcus with only a few backward glances. As the door closed behind them, the room fell into a silence so complete I could hear my own heartbeat, rapid and irregular under Kalen's steady gaze. He moved further into the room, and I rose from the rocking chair, suddenly aware of how rumpled I must look after a sleepless night. "Your spell is still active," he noted, gesturing to the faint blue shimmer that still clung to the walls. "It will fade soon," I said, unsure of what else to say in the face of his overwhelming presence. In the clear light of morning, he seemed even more imposing than he had in the moonlight, and more troubled. "You saved my children," he said, each word weighted with gravity. "No one else noticed the Shadow Walker. No one else acted." I shook my head, uncomfortable with his intensity. "I was just in the right place." "No." He cut me off, taking another step closer. "Do not diminish what you did. You saw what others missed. You acted when others were blind. You put yourself between my children and a creature that would have destroyed them." I swallowed hard, acutely aware of his proximity. "They are innocent. I could not just watch. Most would have run for help. You confronted it alone." His voice softened slightly. "That was brave. And foolish." A flicker of defiance sparked in me. "It worked, did it not?" To my surprise, he laughed, a short, rough sound, as if he were not accustomed to making it. Yes, little one, it worked this time. Little one. The same endearment he had used last night, before those other, more impossible words. My true mate. As if reading my thoughts, Kalen's expression grew serious again. There is something else we need to discuss. My mouth went dry. Last night, what you said. I meant it, he said simply, though there was nothing simple about the declaration. When I touched your blood, when our eyes met, you felt it too, do not deny it. I could not deny it. The connection had been instant and overwhelming, like finding a piece of myself I had not known was missing. But I am human, I whispered. Alphas mate with werewolves, with lunas who can stand beside them as equals. A shadow crossed his face at the mention of lunas. Sabina was a werewolf. She was strong, beautiful, politically connected, everything a traditional luna should be. And she would have sacrificed our children for her own vanity. He moved closer still, so close that I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze. Strength is not measured in claws and fangs, Julian. You proved that last night. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. True strength is not in claws or fangs. It is in doing what is right when everyone else is looking away. Had she known, had she somehow foreseen this moment? The mate bond does not lie, Kalen continued, his voice dropping lower. It can be rejected, but it cannot be denied. What I feel, what we both felt, is real. My heart raced, a war of hope and fear raging within me. The pack would never accept a human Luna. The pack will accept my choice, he said with absolute certainty. Many already see you differently after last night. You protected their alpha's children. That earns respect, even from the most traditional of wolves. And the ones who still see me as an outsider, as weak. A dangerous gleam entered his eyes. Let them challenge you. I think they will find you are stronger than you appear. I thought of my grandmother's teachings, of the magic that flowed in my veins, magic that had been enough to hold off an ancient fey creature, at least temporarily. Perhaps there was a strength in me that I had yet to fully understand. I do not expect an answer now, Kalen said, his voice gentling. Being an alpha's mate is not easy. Being a father to 3 werewolf pups, even less so. I am asking you to consider a life that will challenge you in ways you cannot imagine. The children, I murmured, thinking of their bright smiles when they saw me that morning. They have just lost their mother. A flicker of pain crossed Kalen's face. They lost her long before last night. Sabina was absent, even when she was physically present. She saw them as extensions of her status, not as children to be loved. The revelation made my heart ache for the triplets. No child deserved such a coldness from a parent. They like you, Kalen added, a hint of wonder in his voice. They always have. Finn asks about you when you do not come to the pack house for days. Ilara keeps a collection of the flowers you helped her gather. Leo tries to remember your stories word for word. Each detail was an arrow to my heart, lodging deep and true. I had always felt drawn to the children, had always made time for them even when the rest of the pack made me feel unwelcome. I need time, I said finally. This is overwhelming. Kalen nodded, respect in his gaze. Time you shall have, but not solitude. The Shadow Walker may have retreated, but it will not forget. Sabina's banishment does not negate the bargain she struck. The creature will return, seeking payment in one form or another. A chill ran down my spine. You think it will come after the children again? Or after you, he said grimly. You interfered in its hunt. Such creatures hold grudges for centuries. What do we do? I asked, instinctively including myself in the protection of his family. A softening came into Kalen's expression at my use of we. First you will move into the pack house. No more living alone at the edge of the territory. I have had your belongings brought to the east wing. I blinked in surprise. That is the royal family's wing. Yes, he said simply. People will talk. Let them. He reached out slowly, giving me time to retreat, and tucked a strand of blonde hair behind my ear. The casual intimacy of the gesture made me shiver. Second, you will teach me about your protection magic. If we combine it with our pack's defenses, we stand a better chance against the Shadow Walker when it returns. The idea of sharing my grandmother's teachings with the Alpha, with anyone in the pack, was both thrilling and terrifying. Her magic had always been our secret, practiced behind closed doors, and spoken of only in whispers. "And third?" I asked, sensing there was more to his plan. A smile curved his lips, transforming his stern face into something breathtaking. "Third, you will join us for breakfast. The children are waiting, and I have found I have quite an appetite this morning." The double meaning in his words sent a flush of heat to my cheeks. Before I could formulate a response, he leaned down and pressed his lips to my forehead, a gesture so gentle it brought tears to my eyes. "Take all the time you need to consider what I have offered," he murmured against my skin. "But know this, Julian, you already hold my heart in your hands. You have protected what I love most in this world. Now I wish to protect you in return." As he drew back, the blue shimmer of my protection spell seemed to reach out toward him, tendrils of light curling around his form before retreating. The magic recognized him, accepted him, even if I had not yet given him my answer. "Breakfast," I agreed, finding my voice at last. "I can manage that much." His smile widened, and he offered me his arm in a courtly gesture that seemed at odds with his modern clothing. "It is a start," he said, as I hesitantly placed my hand in the crook of his elbow, "and I'm a patient wolf, when the prize is worth the wait." Together we left the children's room, stepping into a future neither of us could have imagined when the moon rose the night before. Whatever came next, whatever dangers we faced, I knew with a sudden clarity that I was no longer alone on the fringes of the pack. For better or for worse, I had found my place, or perhaps it had found me. The following days passed in a blur of adjustment and whispers. Moving into the packhouse's east wing placed me at the center of pack life rather than its periphery, and the change was as jarring as stepping from shadow into a blinding light. Eyes followed me everywhere, some curious, some hostile, some calculating. The news of Sabina's betrayal and banishment had spread through the pack like wildfire, along with rumors of my role in saving the Alpha's children. What had not become common knowledge, thankfully, was Kalen's declaration about our mate bond. He had kept his word about giving me time, maintaining a respectful distance in public while ensuring I was treated with the deference due to someone under his personal protection. In private, during the evenings we spent with the children or discussing strategies against the Shadow Walker's return, his gaze would often linger on me with an intensity that left me breathless. A week after that fateful night, I found myself in the packhouse's extensive library, searching for any information about Shadow Walkers. My grandmother's teachings had been practical rather than academic, how to craft protection spells, how to harness natural energies, but had included little lore about the creatures we might need protection from. "You will not find much in those," a gravelly voice commented as I flipped through yet another unhelpful tome. I looked up to find an old man watching me from the doorway. His weathered face was a map of wrinkles, and his silver hair was still thick despite his advanced age. Among werewolves who aged more slowly than humans, he was ancient, nearly 200 years old, if the rumors were true. "I have to try," I said, closing the book with a sigh. "The Shadow Walker will come back. We need to be prepared." The old man nodded, his pale blue eyes sharp with intelligence despite his years. "Shadow Walkers are not mentioned in our histories because they are not our traditional enemies. They prey on greed and vanity, not on pack bonds." I straightened in my chair, suddenly alert. "You know about them?" A smile creased his face. "I know about many things, child. I have lived long enough to see the boundary between our world and the Fey realms thin and thicken again, like the waxing and waning of the moon." He moved further into the library, his steps surprisingly spry for one so old. "Your grandmother understood this. She was wise in the old ways, human though she was." The mention of my grandmother sent a pang through my heart. "You knew her?" "Of course," the old man said, settling into the chair across from me. "She helped birth half the pack and healed our wounds when traditional methods failed. She was respected." I had not known this. My grandmother had rarely spoken of her relationships with the pack, and after her death I had been taken in more out of obligation than affection. "She never told me she was friends with the pack." The old man's eyes twinkled. "More than friends with some. Your grandfather was one of us, child." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. "What? That is not possible. I am human." "Mostly human," he corrected. "Your grandfather was a werewolf, but the gene is recessive in some pairings. Your mother was human, and so are you. but you have enough wolf blood to make you sensitive to certain things. Why do you think your protection spells work so well? Pure humans can learn magic, yes, but it takes decades of study. You have had a gift for it since childhood, have you not?" I sat back, stunned, as pieces of my life suddenly rearranged themselves into a new pattern. My uncanny sense of direction in the forest, my ability to sense the emotions of others, the way I healed faster than most humans, though nowhere near werewolf speed. "Why did she not tell me?" I whispered. The old man's expression softened. "She wanted to protect you. Mixed bloods sometimes face prejudice from both worlds. She thought it better for you to live fully in one than to be caught between two. And my mother? Did she know?" "She knew. It is why she left, I think. The burden of that knowledge was too heavy for her." The old man reached across the table to pat my hand. "Your grandmother hoped that burden would be lighter for you when the time came." I looked down at the silver amulet I always wore, seeing it with new eyes. The wolf with the sapphire eyes, a symbol of my heritage, not just a keepsake. "Does Kalen know?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The old man chuckled. "The Alpha knows there is something special about you, but I doubt he knows your specific lineage. Few remember your grandfather now. He died in the territorial wars 50 years ago, long before Kalen was born. And the Shadow Walker? What do you know of it?" The old wolf's face grew grave. "They are ancient, even by my standards. Neither good nor evil in human terms, but dangerous. They feed on life force. Blood is merely the conduit. They honor their bargains to the letter while twisting their spirit. Sabina offered her children's blood, thinking she could renege on the bargain later, perhaps by producing more children as substitutes. The coldness of such a calculation made me shudder. How do we fight it when it returns?" "Not with teeth and claws," the old man said. "Those are useless against shadow and smoke, but with light." He nodded toward my amulet. "And old magic, and the strength of true bonds. These are things a shadow walker cannot stand against." "True bonds," I repeated, thinking of Kalen's words, "my true mate." The old man's knowing gaze seemed to read my thoughts. "The mate bond is the strongest magic our kind possesses. Stronger than alpha power, stronger than pack bonds. It connects souls across distance, across time, and even, rarely, across species. Is that why Kalen—" I stopped, unsure of how much to reveal. "Why he looks at you as if you hung the moon," the old man finished, his eyes crinkling with amusement. "Yes, the bond recognizes what belongs together, what completes each other. It cares nothing for politics or tradition." The library door opened before I could respond, and a young she-wolf entered with hurried steps. "There you are," she said, nodding to me. "The Alpha requests your presence in his study, immediately." I rose, a prickle of apprehension along my skin. Has something happened? The she-wolf's expression gave nothing away. "He did not say. He just sent me to find you." I glanced at the old man, who gave me an encouraging nod. "Remember what I said about true bonds, child, and know that your grandmother would be proud of the man you have become." His words stayed with me as I made my way through the pack house, past curious onlookers and whispered conversations that faltered as I passed. The east wing, where Kalen's study was located, was quieter, the hallways wider and decorated with paintings of past pack leaders. I paused outside his door, taking a deep breath before knocking. "Enter," came his deep voice from within. Kalen stood by the window, his broad shoulders tense beneath his charcoal-gray Henley. He turned as I entered, and the raw emotion in his eyes stopped me in my tracks. "What is wrong?" I asked, instantly alert. "The Shadow Walker has been sighted again," he said without preamble. "At the northern border. It killed 2 deer and arranged their bodies in a pattern." "A message." My blood ran cold. "What kind of message?" "A countdown." Kalen ran a hand through his dark hair, a rare gesture of frustration. 3 stones were placed between the bodies. 3 days. "Until it comes for the children," I guessed, fear clutching at my throat. "Or for you," he added grimly. "We do not know which it wants more at this point, the original payment or the one who interfered." I moved to the window where he stood, looking out at the forest that surrounded the pack's territory. Somewhere in those ancient trees, a creature of shadow and malice was waiting, planning. "The old man told me more about shadow walkers," I said. "They cannot be fought with physical strength. but they are vulnerable to light and true bonds. Kalen's gaze sharpened. What kind of true bonds? Pack bonds, family bonds. I hesitated, then added softly, mate bonds. The tension between us shifted, becoming electric and immediate. Kalen moved closer, his golden eyes never leaving mine. Is that what you have decided then? To accept the mate bond? My heart hammered against my ribs. I am still coming to terms with everything, but I will not let that creature hurt the children. Or the pack. Or me? He asked, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. The question stripped me bare, demanding honesty. Or you, I admitted. The thought of you being hurt. I cannot bear it. A fierce, possessive light flashed in his eyes. That is the bond speaking. Even unacknowledged, it protects what belongs to us. I do not belong to anyone, I said automatically, though the words felt hollow. Kalen smiled, the expression transforming his severe features. No, you are your own, as am I. But together we could be something greater than either of us alone. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted in the hallway outside. The door burst open and Marcus rushed in, his face pale with panic. Alpha, the children! They are gone. The world seemed to stop. What do you mean, gone? Kalen demanded, his voice deadly calm, though I could feel the rage building beneath it. They were in the garden with their tutor, Marcus explained breathlessly. She turned her back for just a minute, just 1 minute to help Leo with his shoelace, and when she looked up, they were gone. All three. Search the grounds, Kalen ordered, already moving toward the door. All available warriors now. Check every building, every corner of the territory. There is more, Marcus said, his voice dropping. We found this by the garden gate. He held out his hand. In his palm lay a small, smooth black stone with a symbol carved into its surface. 3 vertical lines intersected by a single horizontal line. The countdown had been accelerated. The Shadow Walker, I breathed, recognizing the symbol from one of my grandmother's old books. It has taken them now instead of waiting. Kalen's face hardened into a mask of controlled fury. Gather the search parties, he told Marcus, but tell them not to engage if they find the creature. Track and report only. As Marcus hurried away, Kalen turned to me, his eyes burning gold with a barely contained wolf energy. Can you find them, with your magic? I clutched my amulet, my mind racing. I need something of theirs, something personal, with their energy attached to it. Without a word, Kalen strode to a cabinet and unlocked it with a key he kept around his neck. From inside he withdrew a small wooden box. When he opened it, I saw 3 locks of hair, 1 from each child, tied with different colored ribbons. I kept these from their first haircuts, he explained, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his face. A wolf tradition, for protection spells, if ever they were needed. I took the box with trembling hands, touched by this glimpse of his softer side. This will work. I will need a map of the territory as well. While Kalen retrieved a detailed map from his desk, I prepared my mind for the working ahead. My grandmother had taught me locator spells, but I had never tried one on this scale, for someone taken by a creature of such power. We spread the map across Kalen's desk, and I placed the box of hair at its center. From my pocket, I took a small vial of consecrated oil my grandmother had prepared years ago, saving it for emergencies. I need silence, I told Kalen. And I hesitated, then held out my hand. I need your strength. The children share your blood. Without a moment's hesitation, he placed his warm palm against mine. The contact sent a jolt of awareness through me, the mate bond humming between us like a plucked string. I closed my eyes and began to whisper the words of the locator spell, feeling the magic rise within me, warmer and stronger than ever before, fed by Kalen's power flowing into me through our joined hands. The oil began to move across the map of its own accord, drawn toward a point in the northern forest. I opened my eyes to see it circling a location deep in the woods, far from any of the pack's trails. There, I said, pointing to the spot. That is where the Shadow Walker has taken them. Kalen studied the map, his expression grim. The old stone circle. It is ancient, predating our pack by centuries. Some say it was once a doorway between worlds. It is trying to take them through, I realized with a fresh wave of horror, to the Fey realm. If it succeeds, they will be lost to us forever, Kalen finished, his voice hollow. He gripped my hand tighter. "I need to go after them, now." "Not alone," I said firmly. "I am coming with you." He shook his head. "It is too dangerous." "They are safest with both of us," I interrupted. "You said it yourself. We are stronger together. Your strength, my magic. The Shadow Walker fears light and true bonds. We have both." A conflict warred in his expression. "If anything happened to you—" "I can protect myself," I assured him, touching the amulet at my throat. "And I can help protect the children. You know I am right." After a long moment he nodded. "We go together, but you stay behind me if we encounter the Shadow Walker." "Until it is time for me not to," I countered, unwilling to make a promise I might need to break. A reluctant smile tugged at his lips. "Stubborn man." "You have no idea," I replied, already gathering what we would need for the confrontation ahead. Within minutes we had left the pack house, Kalen pausing only long enough to issue commands to his warriors. Some would continue searching the grounds in case the locator spell was wrong. Others would form a perimeter around the stone circle, waiting for our signal. As we entered the forest, Kalen shifted to his wolf form, massive and black, his golden eyes the only spot of warmth in his midnight fur. I ran alongside him, my pace nowhere near as fast, but sustained by a grim determination, and the strange new energy that had awakened in me since touching Kalen's blood that night. The forest grew darker and more primeval as we traveled north, the trees older and more twisted, the undergrowth thicker. My amulet grew warm against my skin, pulsing with a warning I felt in my bones. We were getting closer. Kalen slowed, his large wolf head turning to check on me. I nodded to indicate I was still able to continue, though my lungs burned and my legs ached. Nothing would stop me from reaching those children. The stone circle appeared ahead of us, massive gray monoliths thrusting up from the forest floor like the teeth of some ancient beast. In the center stood the Shadow Walker, its form more substantial than before, as if it had fed recently, a thought that turned my stomach. Before the creature, huddled together on a flat stone that resembled an altar, were the triplets. Their small faces were pale with fear, but they were alive and seemingly unharmed. Ilara was comforting her brothers, her tiny arms around their shoulders as they trembled. Kalen growled, the sound so deep and threatening it vibrated the ground beneath our feet. The Shadow Walker turned, its hollow eyes finding us at the edge of the clearing. "Alpha King," it hissed, its voice like dry leaves rustling. "You arrived just in time to witness the fulfillment of the bargain." "There is no bargain," I called out, stepping forward despite Kalen's warning growl. Sabina had no right to offer what was not hers to give. The creature's head tilted at an unnatural angle. Ah, the light bearer, the human who thinks he can challenge the old laws. It glided closer, its form shifting and wavering like smoke. A bargain made is a bargain kept. The mother offered. I accepted. Payment must be made. "Then take me instead," I said, ignoring Kalen's snarl of protest. "1 life for 3. A fair exchange." The Shadow Walker paused, considering. "Interesting. Your life force is unusual, not purely human. There is power in your blood, old power. It would sustain me longer than these little ones, perhaps." Kalen moved in front of me, his massive body a wall between me and the creature. The message was clear. It would have to go through him first. The Shadow Walker laughed, a sound like breaking ice. "How touching! The alpha protects his mate." It turned back toward the children. "But who protects your pups while you stand guard over him?" With an impossible speed, it flowed toward the triplets, reaching out with hands like twisted branches. "Now, Kalen," I shouted, activating the protection spell I had prepared during our journey. Kalen howled, the sound piercing the twilight gloom of the forest. At the same moment I threw the pouch of herbs and salt I had prepared, my blood already mixed within. It burst open at the feet of the triplets, spreading a circle of blue light around them. The Shadow Walker recoiled, hissing in pain as the light touched its form. "Clever," it said, "but not clever enough." It turned toward us, its shape growing larger, more threatening. "If I cannot have the children, I will take you both. The pack will be leaderless, and I will return for the little ones at my leisure." Kalen shifted back to his human form, naked and magnificent in the fading light. "You will take nothing," he growled, his voice layered with his alpha power. "This ends now." I moved to stand beside him, no longer willing to remain behind. "Together," I said, reaching for his hand. He took it without hesitation, and the connection between us flared to life, stronger than before, a bridge of golden light that seemed to flow around us, through us, binding us together. The shadow walker recoiled further, its hollow eyes widening. "The mate bond," it whispered. "You have accepted it." In that moment I realized the truth. I had accepted it, not with words, but with action, with the choice to stand beside Kalen against the darkness, to protect what he loved most, what we both loved. "We have," I said, squeezing Kalen's hand. "Now leave our family in peace, or face the consequences." The shadow walker wavered, its form becoming less substantial. "This is not over," it warned. "The bargain must be honored. If not with blood, then with something of equal value." "Name your price," Kalen said, his voice steady. "Anything but my family." The creature was silent for a long moment, its hollow gaze moving between us, calculating. "The crown. Renounce your position as Alpha King. Walk away from your power, your territory, your legacy. That is my price." The forest fell silent, as if every creature were holding its breath. Even the wind seemed to pause, waiting for Kalen's answer. I felt him tense beside me, his hand tightening around mine. "The crown," he repeated, his voice neutral, though I could sense the turmoil beneath. "My position as Alpha King." The shadow walker drifted closer, its hollow eyes gleaming with victory. "Yes. Step down. Surrender your power to another. Leave this territory forever. Your bloodline's reign ends with you." For generations, Kalen's family had led the Silver Moon Pack. His father, his grandfather, and ancestors beyond counting had worn the mantle of Alpha King, guiding and protecting their people. To ask him to give that up, to walk away from his birthright, his responsibility, his very identity, was a price designed to wound as deeply as the loss of his children would have. "And if I refuse?" Kalen asked, though we both knew the answer. The shadow walker's form shimmered with a dark amusement. "Then our original bargain stands. Blood will be paid. If not today, then tomorrow, or a year from now. I am patient, Alpha King. I will watch from the shadows until your guard drops, until you believe your family is safe, and then I will take what is owed." Ilara whimpered from within the blue circle of protection, and the sound seemed to pierce Kalen's heart. His face, already grave, grew haunted. "Take me," I said suddenly, stepping forward. "Not as a life, but as a servant. 7 years of service in the Shadow Realm. That is a traditional bargain, is it not? 7 years of my life for the children's freedom." "Julian." "No," Kalen growled, pulling me back. "Do not offer what you do not understand." The shadow walker tilted its head, considering me with a new interest. 7 years in the unseen court. Interesting. Your light would be useful. Many would pay for such a servant." "Do not do this," Kalen whispered fiercely in my ear. 7 years in the Fey realm could be centuries in our world. Everyone you know would be dust when you returned, if you returned at all." "I will not let you give up your crown," I replied, equally fierce. "The pack needs you. Those children need you." "And I need you," he said, the raw emotion in his voice stealing my breath. "We have only just found each other." The shadow walker drifted closer, clearly enjoying our distress. "Decide quickly, mortals. The doorway opens soon, with or without its passengers." I looked toward the stone altar where the triplets huddled, their small faces pinched with fear, yet still so trusting, so certain their father would save them. They were so young, with their entire lives ahead of them. How could I not make a sacrifice for that? "Wait," came a voice from the edge of the clearing. We turned to see the old man, limping into the stone circle, his ancient face resolute despite the obvious pain of his journey. He carried a wooden staff carved with symbols I did not recognize, its tip glowing faintly in the gathering darkness. "Elder," Kalen said, surprise evident in his voice, "you should not be here." "And yet here I am," the old man replied with a thin smile. He turned his pale blue eyes toward the shadow walker. "I thought it might be you, Malachor, still collecting on debts after all these centuries." The shadow walker seemed to recoil slightly. "You remember me, old wolf?" "I remember everything," the old man said, his voice gaining strength. including the proper way to address a fey of your standing." He bowed, a courtly gesture that seemed at odds with his weathered appearance. "Lord Malachor of the Unseen Court, Shadow Walker, Keeper of Oaths." The creature, Malachor, straightened, becoming more solid, more humanoid, though still unnaturally tall and gaunt. "Well met. You were but a pup when last we crossed paths." The old man chuckled. 170 years changes a wolf, my lord, though you remain as I remember." I watched this exchange with a growing confusion, sensing a history here I did not understand. Kalen seemed equally baffled, though he kept his expression carefully neutral. "You speak of a bargain," the old man continued, addressing the Shadow Walker, "but I wonder if you have considered all the possibilities." Malachor drifted closer to the old man, ignoring Kalen and me completely now. "Speak plainly, old wolf. What alternative do you propose?" The old man leaned heavily on his staff, but his voice remained strong. "A life debt, mine to you. I am old, Malachor. My time grows short by mortal standards. But for a being like you, the life force of a 200-year-old werewolf would be substantial, especially one with my bloodline." Horror dawned on me as I realized what the old man was suggesting. "No," I whispered. Malachor seemed to consider the offer, his hollow eyes gleaming with interest. "Your life instead of the crown, or the pups, or the light-bearer. A noble sacrifice, elder." "Not a sacrifice," the old man corrected. "An exchange. My remaining years for their freedom, and," he added, his voice dropping, "for the nullification of all bargains between you and this pack, past, present, and future." Malachor hissed, clearly displeased by this addition. "You ask for much, old wolf." "I offer much," the old man countered. "My blood carries the power of 20 alphas, diluted but preserved. The magic of our earliest ancestors still runs in my veins, thin but potent. You will not find its like again in this age." The Shadow Walker circled the old man slowly, assessing him with those empty eyes. "I could take you by force. You are old, weakened." "You could try," the old man said mildly. "But we both know that a willing sacrifice carries a greater power than that which is taken by force. And," he added with a sly smile, "I have learned a few tricks in my long years. This old wolf still has his teeth." As if to emphasize his point, the staff in his hand flared brighter, casting his wizened face in a sharp relief. For a moment I glimpsed the powerful wolf he must have once been, proud and fierce, a true warrior of the pack. Malachor retreated a step, clearly reassessing the situation. "A life, freely given," he mused. "All debts cleared. The pack untouchable thereafter." "Those are my terms," the old man confirmed. "Do not do this," Kalen said, moving forward. "As your alpha, I forbid it." The old wolf turned to him with a gentle smile. "With all respect, my king, this decision is not yours to make. I have lived a long and good life. I have seen the pack flourish under your rule, as it did under your father's, and his father's before him. I will not watch it fall now, not when I can prevent it." "There must be another way," I insisted, tears burning my eyes. The old man's gaze softened as it fell on me. "Dear child, your grandmother would be so proud of the man you have become, of the Luna you will be." Luna, the title sent a shock through me, both terrifying and exhilarating. In that moment I could see the future the old man envisioned. Me, standing beside Kalen, helping to lead the pack, raising the triplets, perhaps even fathering children of my own one day. A future that would not exist if the Shadow Walker claimed any of us. "I have made my choice," the old man said firmly, turning back to Malachor. "Do you accept my terms?" The Shadow Walker was silent for a long moment, its form shifting and swirling as it considered. Finally it gave a single sharp nod. "I accept. Your life for their freedom. All debts cleared, all bargains nullified between myself and the Silver Moon Pack." Relief and grief warred within me as the old man nodded, a look of satisfaction in his ancient eyes. "Then let it be done." "No," Kalen growled, stepping forward. "I cannot allow this." The old man turned to him, suddenly every inch the elder, his authority almost palpable despite his frail appearance. "You can and you will, Alpha. This is the way. One life freely given to save many. It is the oldest law of our kind, older even than the crown you wear." The truth of his words seemed to strike Kalen physically. His shoulders sagged, not in defeat, but in an acceptance of a reality he could not change. "The children first," I said, finding my voice. "Send them to us. Then complete your bargain." Malachor hissed in annoyance but nodded. With a wave of his branch-like hand, the protection circle I had created shimmered and faded. "Come, little wolves," he called to the triplets. "Return to your father." Elara was the first to move, brave little girl that she was, pulling her brothers by their hands. They ran across the clearing and threw themselves at Kalen, who knelt to gather them in his arms, his powerful body shaking with relief. "Papa," Finn sobbed, burying his face in Kalen's chest. "The Shadow Man said we had to go away forever." "Never," Kalen promised fiercely, holding them tighter. "You are safe now. You are home." Leo looked up, his golden eyes finding mine. "Jules helped save us," he said with a child's certainty. "I saw the blue light, like in your stories." "Yes, little one," I said softly, kneeling beside them and stroking his dark hair. "Like the stories." Elara reached for my hand, her small fingers wrapping around mine. "Are you going to be our new father?" she asked, her voice so innocent, so hopeful, that it nearly broke me. Before I could answer, the old man stepped forward, his staff planted firmly on the ground, between us and the Shadow Walker. "Take them home, both of you," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "This old wolf has one last hunt to complete." Kalen stood, the children still clinging to him. His eyes met the old man's in a look of profound respect and sorrow. "Your sacrifice will never be forgotten, Elder. Your name will be honored for generations to come." The old man smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. "Live well, my king. Lead our pack with wisdom and strength." His gaze shifted to me. "Take care of them. They need your heart as much as they need his strength." I nodded, unable to speak through the knot in my throat. "Go now," the old man said, turning back to face the Shadow Walker. "What comes next is not for children's eyes." Kalen hesitated only a moment longer before lifting Leo into his arms. I picked up Elara, and Finn clung to his father's leg. Together we backed away from the stone circle, the children's faces pressed against our shoulders to shield them from what was to come. At the edge of the clearing I paused to look back. The old man stood tall and proud before Malachor, his staff planted firmly on the ground, his silver head held high. For a moment an image overlaid the reality, not a frail old man, but a massive silver wolf, his eyes gleaming with intelligence and power, facing the darkness without fear. "Thank you," I whispered, too softly for him to hear. As we turned away, the forest around us seemed to exhale, the tension that had gripped it finally releasing. Birdsong resumed, tentative at first, then stronger. The evening breeze rustled the leaves overhead, carrying the scent of pine and wild roses, the same scents I had noticed on the night of the solstice feast, when everything had changed. We met Kalen's warriors at the edge of the forest. Their faces registered shock, then relief, at the sight of the children safe in our arms. Without being told, they formed a protective circle around us, escorting us back to the pack house in a respectful silence. The journey seemed shorter on the return, or perhaps I was simply too numb with grief and exhaustion to notice the passage of time. The children, overwhelmed by their ordeal, fell asleep against us, their small bodies going limp with the release of fear. By the time we reached the pack house, word of our return had spread. Pack members lined the path, their faces solemn yet relieved. They bowed their heads as Kalen passed, and not just to their alpha, but to me as well. The gesture brought fresh tears to my eyes. For the first time since my grandmother had died, I felt seen, accepted. Marcus met us at the door, his eyes red from crying, but his smile genuine. "Thank the moon you are all safe," he said, gently taking Elara from my arms. "Let me help with the children." Together we brought the triplets to their room, changing them into their pajamas without waking them. They cuddled up together in Finn's bed rather than separating, seeking comfort in each other's presence, even in sleep. I stood watching them for a long moment, my heart so full it felt as if it might burst. They were safe. Whatever the cost, whatever the pain, this made it all worthwhile. Kalen's warmth at my back alerted me to his presence before his arms slipped around my waist, pulling me gently against his chest. I leaned into him, accepting the comfort he offered. "The old man," I whispered, the name catching on a sob. "I know," Kalen murmured, his breath warm against my hair. "I know." We stood in silence, watching the children sleep, each lost in our own grief for the noble wolf who had given everything to save them, to save us all. Finally, Kalen turned me in his arms, tipping my face up to meet his gaze. The golden eyes that had once seemed so intimidating now held only warmth and something deeper, something that made my heart race. "He called you Luna," he said softly. I nodded, unable to deny it. He seemed very certain of the future. He was rarely wrong. Kalen's thumb traced the curve of my cheek, wiping away a tear I had not realized I had shed. He saw what I have known since the moment our eyes met. "You belong here, Julian, with the pack, with the children." His voice dropped lower. "With me." The last of my resistance crumbled under the weight of the truth. I had been fighting the inevitable, clinging to fears that no longer mattered. The bond between us was not something to be feared. It was a gift, a bridge between two souls who had been searching for each other without knowing it. "Yes," I whispered, the word releasing something tight and painful in my chest. "I do belong here." Kalen's smile was like the sun breaking through the clouds, transforming his severe features into something breathtaking. Slowly, giving me every chance to retreat, he lowered his head until our foreheads touched. "My mate," he breathed, the words a prayer and a promise. "My Luna. My heart." Our lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home after a long, cold journey. Gentle at first, then deeper, as the bond between us flared to life, golden and warm. I felt it settle around us, through us, binding us together in ways that went beyond the physical. When we finally parted, both breathless, Kalen pressed another kiss to my forehead. "Rest now," he said. "The children will need us when they wake. There will be questions, fears to be soothed." "And the old man?" I asked, needing to know how we would honor him. "We will hold a ceremony at the next full moon," Kalen said, his voice steady despite the pain in his eyes. "The ceremony of the fallen warrior, the highest honor our pack can bestow." I nodded, taking comfort in the ritual to come. "He saved us all." "Yes," Kalen agreed, his gaze moving to the sleeping triplets, "and we will live in a way that honors his sacrifice." As if sensing we were talking about him, Finn stirred in his sleep, a small frown creasing his forehead. I moved to the bed and gently stroked his dark hair until the frown eased, his face relaxing back into a peaceful slumber. "They will need time to heal from this," I said softly. "Children are resilient, but trauma leaves its marks." "They have us," Kalen said, coming to stand beside me. "Both of us. Together we will help them through this." The certainty in his voice, the steady presence of his body beside mine, filled me with a peace I had not felt in years. Whatever came next, and I had no illusions that our path would be easy, we would face it together, as a family. "Together," I agreed, taking his hand. Outside the window, the moon rose, full and silver over the forest, its light bathing the room in a gentle glow. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a lone voice quickly joined by others, the sound rising and falling in an ancient harmony. The pack calling to one another, connecting, affirming that they were alive, that they were together, that they were home. And for the first time in my life I was truly a part of that chorus, not on the fringes, not merely tolerated, but woven into the very fabric of the pack. The human with the wolf's blood, the light-bearer, the alpha's mate, the Luna. As the wolf's song faded into the night, I felt a whisper of a presence, not quite seen, not quite heard, but felt deep in my bones. The old man's spirit, perhaps, or simply the magic that had always run in my veins, finally awakened and acknowledged. "Remember who you are," my grandmother had said, "even when others forget." I touched the silver amulet at my throat, the wolf with the sapphire eyes that had watched over me all these years. I remember, I thought. And now, so does everyone else. 3 months later, the pack house was transformed. Garlands of autumn flowers and golden leaves draped the great hall, their scent mingling with pine and cinnamon. Pack members moved through the space with a purpose, setting up long tables, arranging chairs, and hanging lanterns that would illuminate the celebration once night fell. I stood in the center of it all, directing the preparations with a confidence that still sometimes surprised me. Elara was perched on my hip, her small fingers playing with the silver amulet I always wore, while her brothers helped the warriors move benches, mostly getting underfoot, but no one seemed to mind. The west corner still needs more lanterns, I told Marcus, who had become my right hand in pack matters. And make sure there is enough of the honeymead. You know how Derek gets if he cannot have his third cup. Marcus laughed, the sound bright in the bustling hall. Yes, Luna, he said, the title rolling naturally off his tongue now. He hurried off to complete his tasks, calling instructions to the younger pack members as he went. Luna. 3 months, and the title still sent a shiver through me, not of discomfort anymore, but of pride, of belonging. The journey had not been easy. There had been resistance from some of the more traditional pack members, questions about a human Luna, doubts about my ability to stand beside the Alpha King. But the old man's sacrifice had changed something fundamental in the pack's perception of me. He had given his life to save not just the royal children, but me as well. That carried a weight, even among the most skeptical. And then there were the children. Their immediate, unquestioning acceptance of me as their new father had swayed many hearts. Children, especially werewolf children with their heightened senses, recognized truths that adults sometimes missed. If the triplets saw me as their father, who were others to argue? Thinking deep thoughts, mate. Kalen's voice pulled me from my reverie, his warm hand settling at the small of my back. I leaned into him instinctively, our bond humming with contentment at the contact. Just reflecting on how much has changed. He smiled, pressing a kiss to my temple. For the better, I hope. Definitely for the better, I assured him, shifting Ilara to my other hip. She reached for her father immediately, and he took her with a practiced ease, tossing her into the air and catching her as she squealed with delight. "Papa," she exclaimed, her small hands framing his face. "Is it time yet? Are they coming?" "Soon, princess," he promised, his eyes softening as they always did with his children. "The neighboring packs will arrive at sunset. You will need to be on your best behavior." She nodded solemnly, though a mischief danced in her golden eyes, so like her father's. "I will be good. I am the Alpha's daughter." "And the Luna's son," Kalen added, his gaze meeting mine over her head, "which means you are twice as responsible." The pride that bloomed in my chest at his words was almost painful in its intensity. 3 months ago I had stood on the fringes of the pack, forgotten and invisible. Now I stood at its heart, helping to lead, to protect, to nurture. The transformation still left me breathless at times. "Jules," Leo called, running toward us with Finn close behind. "Come see what we made for the feast." I exchanged an amused glance with Kalen before following the boys to a small table in the corner of the hall. On it sat 3 clumsily formed clay sculptures, painted in bright colors. "This is Papa," Finn explained, pointing to the largest figure, a black wolf with golden eyes. "And this is you." The second figure was clearly human, with long blonde hair and blue eyes, wearing a suit of silver and blue. "And what is this one?" I asked, pointing to the third sculpture, another wolf, this one silver with blue eyes. Leo looked at me as if I had asked something obvious. "That is you too, your wolf." My breath caught. "Leo, I do not have a wolf. I am human, remember?" The boys exchanged a look I could not interpret, a secret communication of twins. "Not all human," Finn said with a certainty. "The old man told us, before." I knelt to their level, studying their earnest faces. "What did he tell you?" "That you have wolf's blood," Leo said, "from a long time ago. That one day you might find your wolf, if you listen hard enough." The words sent a chill down my spine. The old man had told me of my werewolf grandfather, but he had never suggested that I might be able to shift. That was impossible for someone with so little wolf's blood, was it not? "When did he tell you this?" I asked gently. "The night before the Shadow Man came," Finn said. "He was telling us stories, about the first wolves, about magic." I made a mental note to ask them more about these stories later, when we had our privacy. "Well, these sculptures are beautiful," I said, touching each one lightly. "We will put them on display at the feast, in a place of honor." Their faces lit up, and they ran off to continue helping, their small bodies vibrating with the barely contained energy of wolf pups. I rose, my mind still caught on their words. "Your wolf." "The children say the strangest things sometimes," I said to Kalen when I rejoined him. He raised an eyebrow, bouncing Ilara gently as she started to fidget. "What did they say this time?" That the old man told them I have wolf's blood, that I might find my wolf someday. A shadow crossed Kalen's face, not of displeasure, but of something deeper, more complex. He spoke to me of this as well, before. My heart skipped a beat. And what did he say? Kalen was silent for a moment, choosing his words with care. That your grandmother hid more than just your heritage from you, that the potential to shift lies dormant in your blood, awakened by the mate bond. His eyes met mine, serious yet hopeful. He said that on the night you truly accept yourself, all parts of yourself, you might find your wolf waiting. The idea was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. To shift, to run on 4 paws under the moon, to share that fundamental experience with Kalen, and eventually with the children, it seemed too much to hope for. Is that even possible? I whispered. I thought humans could not shift, even with some wolf ancestry. Normally, no, Kalen admitted. But you are not entirely normal, mate. His lips quirked in a half-smile. Your magic, your bond with me, your bloodline. The old man believed these things together might be enough. I touched my amulet, the wolf with the sapphire eyes that had been my grandmother's final gift. Had she known? Had she been preparing me all along for a future she had foreseen but could not speak of directly? Whether you shift or not, Kalen continued, his voice gentle, you are my mate, my Luna, the father of my children. Nothing will change that. I leaned into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. I know, and I am happy as I am. If more comes, it is a gift. If not, I already have more than I ever dreamed of. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, his golden eyes warm with love. Wise words, Luna. The moment was interrupted by a young warrior hurrying into the hall. Alpha, Luna, the first guests have arrived. The Stone River pack approaches from the east. Kalen straightened, shifting seamlessly into his role as Alpha King. Very good. Gather the welcoming party. As the warrior hurried away, I took Alara from Kalen's arms. I will get the children ready. You handle the official welcome. He nodded, then caught my hand before I could turn away. Tonight, after the feast, when the moon is high. Perhaps we could try, to see if your wolf is ready. The offer sent a thrill through me. Yes, I said, surprising myself with how much I wanted it. Tonight. His smile was like a sunrise, full of promise and warmth. With a final squeeze of my hand, he strode toward the entrance hall, every inch the powerful Alpha King preparing to greet his allies. I watched him go, my heart full to bursting. Then, with Alara on my hip, I went to find the boys and prepare them for their duties as the Alpha's children. Tonight was important, the first major gathering of the neighboring packs since I had become Luna. First impressions would matter. The hours that followed passed in a blur of activity. The packs arrived one after another, Stone River from the east, Black Mountain from the north, and Silver Lake from the west. Each Alpha brought their inner circle, their heirs, and their Lunas. They were welcomed with the traditional ceremonies, offered bread and salt, and shown to their quarters in the guest wing. I moved through it all with as much grace as I could muster, acutely aware of the curious eyes watching me, assessing the human Luna who had replaced the disgraced Sabina. The children stayed close, instinctively understanding that their acceptance of me was important to the visitors. By the time the feast began in earnest, the great hall was filled with over 100 werewolves from 4 different packs. The noise was tremendous, laughter, conversation, and the occasional friendly growl as old rivals reconnected. The atmosphere was festive, yet charged with an undercurrent of politics that I was still learning to navigate. I sat beside Kalen at the high table, the triplets between us, every bit the royal family. Across from us sat the other Alphas and their Lunas, Victor of Stone River with his mate Elena, Marcus of Black Mountain with his Luna Sarah, and Lillian of Silver Lake, one of the few female Alphas, with her mate James. "Your first interpack feast as Luna," Elena said to me as servants brought out the main course. "How are you finding it?" I smiled, recognizing the question for what it was, part friendly interest, part assessment. "Overwhelming, but exhilarating. There is so much history and tradition to absorb." "You seem to be adapting well," she observed, her eyes lingering on the triplets, who were behaving with a surprising decorum. "The children clearly adore you." "And I, them," I said simply. "It is unusual," Sarah commented, her tone carefully neutral. A human Luna. Before I could respond, Lillian leaned forward, her sharp eyes fixed on me. Not as unusual as one might think. My grandmother's grandmother was human before the bite transformed her. She tilted her head, studying me. Though you have not been bitten, have you? You carry your humanity proudly. I am what I am, I said, meeting her gaze steadily. Human, with just enough wolf's blood to understand both worlds. Something like approval flashed in Lillian's eyes. Well said, Luna Julian. Too many forget that our strength comes not just from fang and claw, but from heart and mind as well. The conversation shifted to territorial matters after that, the alphas discussing recent challenges, rogue wolves sighted near the borders, humans venturing too close to sacred sites, the ever-present dance of maintaining secrecy in an increasingly connected world. I listened closely, absorbing the dynamics between the pack leaders. Kalen commanded respect even among his peers, his opinions weighted more heavily, his counsel sought on difficult matters. A warmth of pride filled me as I watched him lead, firm yet fair, powerful yet compassionate. As the meal progressed to dessert, Marcus cleared his throat, drawing the attention of the high table. "There is another matter we should address," he said, his deep voice carrying easily over the ambient noise. "The Shadow Walker." A hush fell over the table. Kalen tensed beside me, his hand finding mine beneath the tablecloth. "What of it?" he asked, his tone carefully controlled. "Word has spread of what happened here," Marcus said. "Of the bargain broken, the sacrifice made." His eyes moved to me, then to the children. "And of the role your Luna played in saving your pups." I held my breath, uncertain of where this was leading. "Shadow walkers rarely forget a slight," Lillian said, her expression grave. "Has there been any sign of its return?" Kalen shook his head. "None. The old man's sacrifice was complete. The bargain was honored, all debts cleared." "Still," Victor said, leaning forward, "we would be remiss not to offer an additional protection. The four packs have stood together for centuries. An attack on the Silver Moon Royal line concerns us all." "What are you suggesting?" Kalen asked, a note of caution in his voice. The three visiting alphas exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. It was Lillian who spoke, her tone formal yet warm. "A renewal of the ancient pact," she said. "A blood oath between the four packs. Mutual protection, extending to all members, including mates and children." Her gaze settled on me. "Including your human Luna." My breath caught. Such a pact was rare and powerful, a binding of pack magic that went beyond a political alliance into something more primal, more lasting. Kalen's hand tightened on mine. "You would extend pack protection to a human?" he asked, his voice deliberately neutral, though I could feel his tension. "To your mate," Marcus corrected. "Human or not, he is bound to you, and through you, to all wolves. The old ways recognize such bonds, even if some of the younger wolves have forgotten." "Besides," Lillian added with a small smile, "any man who would face a shadow walker to protect children not born of his body has earned a measure of our respect." A warmth flooded me at her words. Acceptance, not just from my own pack, but from the neighboring packs as well. It was more than I had dared to hope for. "We would be honored to renew the pact," Kalen said, his voice deep with emotion. "Tonight, under the full moon." The alphas nodded, a look of satisfaction on their faces. The matter was decided. The conversation resumed, lighter now, turning to more pleasant topics. As the feast began to wind down, I excused myself briefly to check on the children, who had been taken to bed by Marcus while the adults continued their discussions. I found them sleeping peacefully, Ilara in the middle as always, her brothers protectively on either side. I brushed a kiss across each small forehead, a love swelling in my chest until it felt as if it might burst. My children, in every way that mattered. My family. When I returned to the great hall, it had been transformed. The tables were pushed to the sides, and in the center a circle of salt and herbs had been laid out, similar to my protection spells but larger, more elaborate. The four alphas stood at the cardinal points of the circle, their mates slightly behind them. Kalen's place was to the north, waiting for me. Pack members gathered around the edges of the hall, silent and reverent. This was old magic, rarely witnessed, and they understood its significance. I moved to Kalen's side, and he took my hand, his eyes glowing a soft gold in the dimmed light. "Are you ready?" he murmured. "Yes," I said without hesitation. Lillian, as the eldest alpha present, began the ritual. "Under the full moon, we the 4 packs renew our ancient bond, blood to blood, heart to heart, pack to pack." She drew a ceremonial knife across her palm, letting 3 drops of her blood fall onto the circle of salt and herbs. Her mate, James, did the same, their blood mingling with the earth. Marcus and Victor followed suit with their mates, each cutting their palms, each offering their blood freely to the circle. When it was our turn, Kalen took the knife, meeting my eyes with a question. I nodded, extending my hand, palm up, in an offering. The small pain of the cut was nothing compared to the significance of the moment. Our blood, his, a werewolf's, mine, mostly human, fell together onto the circle. The moment the last drop touched the earth, the circle ignited, not with fire, but with a soft, pulsing light that reminded me of my protection spells. It spread outward, washing over all those present in gentle waves of warmth and connection. I gasped as I felt it, the pack bonds extending beyond our own silver moon, reaching out to encompass Stone River, Black Mountain, and Silver Lake. Hundreds of wolves connected through blood and magic, their strength flowing into me as mine flowed into them. And beneath it all something else stirred, something wild and ancient, curled deep within my soul. I clutched Kalen's hand tighter as the sensation grew, like an echo answering a call that had been too long unheard. "Your wolf," a voice whispered in my mind, whether a memory or a bit of magic, I could not tell. "She waits for you to acknowledge her." The light of the circle faded gradually, leaving the hall in darkness save for the lanterns hanging from the rafters. The ritual was complete. The alphas stepped back from the circle, a look of satisfaction on their faces. "It is done," Lillian declared. "The pact is renewed, the bond strengthened. 4 packs, 1 blood." "4 packs, 1 blood," everyone repeated, the words reverberating through the hall. The formality of the moment broke as the pack members surged forward, mingling more freely now that the official business was concluded. Music started up, drums and flutes playing traditional wolf songs that spoke of moonlight and freedom and the joy of the run. I remained where I was, still processing the strange awakening I had felt during the ritual. Kalen watched me closely, a mixture of concern and hope in his expression. "What is it?" he asked softly. "I felt something," I admitted, pressing a hand to my chest where the sensation had been the strongest. "During the ritual, like something waking up." His eyes widened slightly. "Your wolf?" "Maybe. I do not know. It was just a feeling, but—" I trailed off, uncertain of how to explain the connection I had felt, the wildness that had surged through me alongside the pack bonds. Kalen glanced toward the open doors of the hall, where moonlight spilled in silver pools across the threshold. "The moon is full. The packs are united. If ever there was a night for a transformation, it would be tonight." Hope and fear twisted in my chest. What if I try and nothing happens? What if the feeling was just wishful thinking? He cupped my face in his hands, his touch infinitely gentle despite the strength I knew he possessed. "Then you remain as you are, my mate, my Luna, the father of my children, beloved of my pack. Nothing changes." The love in his eyes gave me courage. "And if something does happen, if I do shift?" A smile spread across his face, joyous and fierce. "Then we run together under the moon, as mates were meant to do." "The decision made," I nodded. "Let us find out." Quietly, we slipped away from the celebration, leaving the packs to their feasting and dancing. Hand in hand, we walked through the pack house and out into the cool autumn night, where the full moon hung like a silver medallion in the velvet sky. The forest welcomed us, the ancient trees standing like sentinels, as we made our way to a small clearing not far from the pack house, the same clearing where we had first celebrated the summer solstice, where everything had begun. Kalen stopped at the edge of the clearing, giving me my space. "What do you need?" he asked. I considered the question, reaching deep within myself for the knowledge that seemed to be awakening. "Quiet," I said finally. "And you, just you." He nodded, moving to sit on a fallen log at the edge of the clearing. Patient. supportive, mine. I stepped into the center of the clearing, where the moonlight poured down, unfiltered by the branches. Closing my eyes, I tilted my face up to the moon, feeling its cool light on my skin like a benediction. "Remember who you are," my grandmother had said, "even when others forget." I had not understood then. Perhaps I was only beginning to understand now. The wolf amulet warmed against my skin, a reminder of a heritage that had been hidden but never truly lost. I am Julian, I thought, grandson of a woman who nan.